So the objective today was to do a high-level cistern swap with some other minor works in a downstairs cloakroom in Leighton Buzzard. On this particular job, the client had purchased all the materials himself. Now normally this would present quite a problem, as you're at the mercy of whatever he's bought. You just have to turn up and deal with it, and very often this results in you having to get additional materials yourself, as what's there is inadequate or the actual stuff itself is not fit for purpose. However, I was quite fortunate, and to this client's credit, he bought everything in advance from the same supplier I used, and I was able to look at all the stuff he wanted me to install ahead of time, so I knew what I was walking into. So I was not met with the usual problems you'd have on a sort of job where you get phoned up and say, "Oh, I've got this already, can you just come and fit it?" And people find it very unreasonable that you can't just give them a straight up cost for that, because you. Upon arriving on the job, my immediate instinct is to work on the mains water first and worry about swapping over the cistern second. This house is quite unusual in that it has two incoming mains as such. It has one exterior stopcock, and then it has the mains coming in the bottom right hand corner of the room, as we saw, and then it also has another stopcock in the main part of the house. It's quite unclear as to how this came to be. I imagine the house was added onto at some point and they felt the need to bring another water supply in that way rather than just running it in the house. I'm not sure how that came to be, but that's what it is, and that's what you encounter out and about in the world, stuff that they don't tell you about in college as such. Now, I've been ordered to put that full flow valve that I have in my hand there for the new cistern feed, and also to replace the two painted stopcocks we see down there with just straight swaps for new ones. And so that's what I get on with. The paint has completely filled in the heads on these slotted screws securing the bracket. A wood chisel or Stanley blade could be used, however the most field expedient way I have found is to simply use a flat screwdriver and a hammer, as you will need the flat screwdriver to perform the next task of undoing the screw. Yes, this saves time putting down and picking up different tools. Also, at this point, seeing that the wooden board that the brackets are screwed to is relatively undamaged, I make the decision to reuse it and simply screw the new brackets onto it. I could have changed the mains water stopcock straight away, however I chose to remove the old cistern first, and I wanted to get my new brackets on the wall as to get any drilling done before I opened or exposed any of the water pipes to the dust that would create. This way I avoid putting foreign particulates into the mains water supply, although it would not have been a massive issue. The principle is still the same. You try and not to put anything foreign into the water supply, as the grit will most likely end up in the toilet cistern anyway, causing it to malfunction and have problems that I would have to come back and deal with. So that is why I chose to do it that way. At this point, I had replaced both 15mm stopcocks that the client had asked to be replaced, and now I'm working on the cold feed coming directly out of the mains and up to the toilet, teeing into that one we see there. And this is where my problem started. The 20mm blue poly stopcock developed a weep on it. I do not know why, as it is a push fit fitting. It should just be pushed on and stay on. However, it does, and it's not the type that you can undo, so I had a lot of fun, as you will see, trying to get it off. Well, first of all I tried to just push it back on and stop it from leaking, and then when that didn't work I had a lot of fun getting it off. I'm quite pleased that I managed to get it off without damaging the incoming main. I lost a lot of time in that I had to go out and get a replacement stopcock for that, which I hadn't planned on, because I thought in my audacity that the current one that was in there was fit for purpose and wouldn't just start leaking because I had touched it, but I think that just shows how inexperienced I am. Self-deprecating jokes aside for one moment, I think it'd be a little bit more informative if you watch it as I sort of discover this can of worms, and you can sort of gauge my thought process as I go along.
what I want to do as soon as possible, get this all under test, and I can work while this is being, while it's under pressure, and then I know it is 100%. That is capable of standing up straight. You know, a clip wouldn't go amiss here, to be honest. I mean, this is the source of the trouble, really, isn't it? The fact that it's not supported. There we go. We put a clip in there, which looks quite in keeping. It's not out of place. I would have preferred to have put it on that line, saying that, but I mean, you know, everyone's got 20/20 hindsight. Yeah, we'll get it pasted up and under pressure. Under some pressure. SDS 12 volt, as usual. Brilliant bit of kit. Like how I go through butter. We've got our new fitting on here to replace the one that we managed to destroy. So yeah, so far so good. Get a bit of paste on that. There it is. I hope you can see this all okay. I'm using the GoPro because the camera, you know, the face cam, decided to shit out on me. I probably shouldn't swear so much in these videos because it's how to, you know, it's good. The goal is to advertise myself, and so I should really present a better image to the public. But I like to think my work will do the talking on that side of it. And I'm never rude to people, only to myself and to the work I come across sometimes. Has to be said. There is a time for foul language. And of course it is my native tongue, because I haven't been to university, so you know, you only learn to speak it good English when you're at a university. For everyone else, their native tongue is cussing, swear words, and you know, phallic jokes. That is how the rest of the uncivilized, you know, world communicates. You know, if the plumber comes round to fit something and he's well spoken and eloquent, you know, you wouldn't get the job. It's as simple as that. It's bad enough that I'm not old enough to remember Margaret Thatcher. So immediately people think I don't know what I'm doing. Which I don't think is necessarily unfair. I learn something new every day. But, you know, sometimes people do take the biscuit. Also, I don't like how easily these stop cocks are doing up. It doesn't feel like they're going, you know, tight. Oh, I've already got paste on there. I was just about to paste that again. It doesn't feel like they're going tight. Don't ask me why, but it does feel like it's biting. If that makes any sense. I mean, we'll see when we turn it on. If it doesn't hold, we'll just turn it straight back off again. That's all we can do. Yeah, that's the old one. I literally had to cut it in half to get it off the sodding pipe, because it literally pulled off of the O-ring, but then it wouldn't come off. You know, what's that about? Tell ya, does my nutting. Right. So that's shut, tab's open, my bag's there, so it is literally my equipment on the line, so let's crack that open a little bit. Ooh! Straight away, right underneath. Oh, I can't get to. Lovely. Straight away. Get some water underneath that. Oh no, it was on. That was fine. What we don't like though is this bit here. Now if the nut's off, Yeah, there we go. So what is wrong with that? Do I suppose it's gone? See, that is loose as anything, so I reckon it might have gone in there. There's no way that could be holding anything. There's no way. Can we even undo that though? That's the question. I have a feeling I'm not going to get to college tomorrow. If I put a cap on that and test that, I'd guarantee that it's going to fuck up. Oh, don't wiggle that. So now if I can move that, and that's loose, and that's live underneath there, so you know I'd be dead already if it was like that. So why is it leaking from up here? I think if we do put a cap on this, we could get a better idea of what's going on. Get a cap on it, put the torch on it. Alright, let's try that. Get that tightened on, and just crack it open again. Get a bright light on it, because I reckon, I mean, it looks like for all the world like it's coming out of this shite that I've just bought. If it is, I'm going to be annoyed, because it's sort of like, oh, how the hell am I going to get it off? Because that is a one-shot deal. But we'll see. Over there is fine, so that part's fine. It's leaking from under here. So, my question is now, is it the old stopcock that's leaking or my bit? Or is it leaking at all? Is it just water that's left over? I can hear it escaping from somewhere. I want to get my blue roll and dry this off, but at the same time I don't trust this fitting. I don't trust that noise. I don't trust anything about this. There is no more water escaping that I can see. At the same time, this is not to be trifled with. I absolutely hate these sort of jobs. Really do. I don't understand why people have to put, like, you can get a proper brass stopcock to 20mm. I've seen them, I've installed them. The fact that they've used this giant, horrible, ugly thing in here is a joke. Because you can't dismount it, you can't do anything about this. If this decides to leak down there, because I've had the audacity to operate the stopcock, what am I to do about it? There ain't a lot I can do about it. I think I'm going to go get the blue roll, dry it out, see what it does. If so, turn it off, put the complete pipework back in, just keep an eye on it. Alright, let's get rid of that damp, see if it comes back. If it comes back, we're ringing the client. This is a joke. Yeah, look, it's coming out of the bottom. Oh, you are kidding me. It's literally coming out of the bottom. So it doesn't even make a difference. So I've touched this. Alright, water's neutralised. Switch this off. And what we'll do, take the pressure off on the cap, open the stopcock, drain it into a little tub, and start again. Now, it could be that I fiddle around with this. Now that the water's off and I'm not going to risk of blowing myself up, I could quite easily push down on this with a bit of confidence that it might just reseal and not give me any problems. If it doesn't, then we will have to go out. We'll have to get a 20mm brass stopcock, an actual brass one, imagine that. And then somehow we've got to now get this piece of rubbish off of here. And it is as simple as that. There is no nut, there's no way you can undo these. These are just literally push on and have fun. So, if you think it's acceptable to fit this like this, I will find you and I will kill you. It is what it is. Should have just quoted to replace it. Lesson learned.
As you may be able to gather from my incessant whinging, I am somewhat disgruntled at the time penalty that this will incur on the day's work, as I also had to look into some fault finding in the upstairs bathroom, as the client was complaining that their recessed shower wasn't working. That wasn't going to get done that day as a result of this, and yeah. But we're back to calm, logical 2020 vision hindsight me. And you watch how I get this off, because I'm pretty pleased with that. I thought that was quite skilled, but we'll see. So, just to summarise, this is a push-fit blue poly fitting in 20mm, and it has no exterior nuts that you can slacken off to remove the fitting, and that is why I'm in the position that I'm in. Now, the tool I chose to remove this with was the multi-cutter, as you'll see in a moment. The stakes on this couldn't really be any higher, because obviously if I damage the small amount of pipe that's coming out of the floor, it is well and truly game over, because I've turned off the water outside to the entire house. If I damage the 20mm, there's no way to even cap it off to put the water back on for the client. So, as you can imagine, this made me somewhat vexed. This is never a position you want to be in while you're working, where a slight error or slip up with your hands can cost you in the region of, somewhere in the region of a couple of £1,000 to, go through a lot of headache and a lot of hassle. Especially for me, as I have difficulty grasping objects due to my poor grip strength and general fatigue that I have in my hands. My hands are not really fit for purpose compared to most people's hands, but we cut it off anyway. The tool I selected, like I mentioned previously, was a multi-cutter. I used a sharp wood blade and a lot of concentration. I would also like to take this opportunity to say that I cannot express enough how much you do not need this Draper brand multi-cutter in your life. I would have felt much more comfortable using a fine multi-cutter, which I do even plan to buy. However, I was not in a position to acquire that tool, as I did not have the necessary funding at the time, and so I bought what I could get hold of, which was this £50 wonder. This particular tool is quite loud. It requires hearing protection. You can it physically makes your ears hurt as you use it. It chews up the blades, as the fastening mechanism is literally an Allen screw onto a flat face. However, it is 400 watts, and where it counts, it, you know, in terms of power, it can cut through pretty much anything and get the job done. However, the blade attrition rate is much higher, and the blades are the most expensive part really of that system. Obviously, if I bought a Fiend, the tool would be more expensive than the blades, but that's lesson learned. And if you take nothing else from this video, please remember, do not buy any cheap tool, no matter how tempting, no matter how difficult it is, because you will be stuck with it in a situation such as this, where you really can't afford to slip up and you have a less than optimum tool to do the job with. And yeah, that's what I have to say about that. Now, I've cut a slot into the fitting. I'll show you this in a moment, but I've cut a slot going vertically up the fitting in order to avoid damaging the pipe. I don't want to make a horizontal cut, because that will almost certainly end up into the pipe. What I'm trying to do is cut the locking ring inside the fitting here that's actually holding it on as such. There will be a rubber O-ring that seals it, and then there'll be like a locking ring, usually with teeth in, that will grip onto the pipe, literally just grip it. You know, the metal teeth will bite in, or the plastic teeth will bite in, and that's how it's held in place. And so I'm trying to cut that up vertically along the length of the pipe, and I'm trying very hard not to go through the fitting and into the poly pipe itself. And now, as you can see, I'm just trying to lever it, gently prise it off with a screwdriver, but I think I later decide that a second cut is necessary. I'm not sure, I can't really remember. This is a few weeks later. You know, as I have the benefit of sitting comfortably with the job having been done. So yeah, bear with us.
Oh, good night. Thanks for playing. Look at that. I mean, apart from the fact the insert's starting to come out, we are 100% snafu. Oh, that could be why it's leaking actually, because you can see it's not cut very level. You see this here? There's a big gap where the monkey that put this in did not cut it square. Yeah, lovely. So, my hypothesis as to why this didn't leak is perhaps to do with that, but I have nothing conclusive. But yeah, there's no, you may be like, oh, just turn the nut and loosen it. There is no nut. This is one plastic moulded piece. I don't know if you've come across these before, but I have. And these are one plastic moulded piece, and there's no way in hell you're going to get that off. So, without further ado, we can put a nut and olive on there. Find out that it's 16mm. Oh, wait, no. There is a god. It is 20mm. And then the best way to seal this, for all you that don't know, which is fair enough, you might not know, is a bit of PTFE around that. You don't really want to use paste on plastic, because it's not a proper jointing material. And so, well, yeah. So we'll get some of that.
Right. What I failed to explain very well there, as I'm not really in a fit purpose to be explaining anything, is that in my limited experience, compression fittings onto plastic, and I had this with a 15mm onto a piece of John Guest Speed Fit pipe. When you put paste on the olive, underneath the olive, it reduces the amount of friction there. So even if you do it up tight, the olive is effectively floating on a sort of slick layer of paste. And when you hit it with the water pressure, what can happen, and I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, but sometimes the olive just pops off because it's not actually on anything. It's all slicked up where it's got paste underneath it and above it. And so that's why I prefer using the PTFE on the olive. You could use either method. Either is perfectly satisfactory on copper or on plastic. However, my rule of thumb is PTFE for plastic and paste for copper, and I haven't been, you know, caught out with that yet, so that's why I choose to do it here. I don't know if it's a factor with 20mm poly. I would have thought the principle would be the same. However, I'm aware that the blue poly is a little bit softer, and so it may be that the olive bites into it a bit easier and it's not an issue, but I ain't about to find out right here, right now. I've got to get done and get home, because I've got to go into college, which is in the middle of Bedford, take an exam. But I'll get onto that later. Also, forgive me if you're another professional watching this, but I feel it's worth mentioning for those at the back of the class. 20mm, 25, 20, and oh, I already said 20. 16, 20, and 25mm, and 32, and all the sizes of blue poly do require inserts, just as normal speed fit pipe does. Just thought I'd mention it because if I don't, somebody will say, why didn't you use an insert, even though you can clearly see it's in there. But just for God's sake, remember to use those. Right, I'm going to speed this up a bit now, but you can flatter me and pretend it's actually real time if you want, although I'll tell you on this job anyway, I was bloody slow just with all these issues I was having, and then of course your morale goes down because you're busy whinging and whining to the camera that it's not fair and all this and that. But yeah, this is getting a little bit tedious, and and you know, I've still got half of the day left to document, so we're just gonna fast forward through this now. Needless to say, you do it up and you put the water back on and test it and all that good stuff. So there's not really anything else I think of note here that's really worth talking about. Another thing I would say is that I did end up coming back the next day. What I did is I came in the morning, finished off the overflow, and I also swapped over that toilet valve, the fill valve, for a different type, because as we see in a minute, we have a little bit of fun. I think this is possibly the fastest filling loo that I've installed. As we see in a minute, I put it on the clock, but first we're going to fill it up, test it, and check it's all tickety-boo, and then yeah, we'll get to the fun bit in a minute. Got to remember to have fun, especially when you've had a little bit of a stressful day such as this, you know, sorting out this sort of thing. You know, you got to make time to enjoy yourself, or else you end up just being miserable forever.
Right, getting there now. I'll have to come back tomorrow to redo this overflow because I don't have the correct fittings with me, but we got this sorted, got that sorted. I'm going to have to cut another notch into the lid because it's on the wrong side, and we've got this ready made so we can sweat that up. This is all put together, pushed in. I've not put any silicone on it, but to be honest, it's been so tight I don't think it'll need it, but we'll see. The only thing is, when you look down at the loo, I don't know if you can see that, but it's not square with the room, and so it's sort of affected this install. I've tried to make it so as you look at it, it's, you know, it looks good, but at the same time, if this isn't square, I don't see how I can make this square. Like, you can see this is turned out to the side. It'd be great to get that down the middle, but I can't do that because it's forcing this forward. And then that's not sitting back against the wall, and I need it to be screwed into the wall. But it's screwed in, and it's just, there's a pain. There's a pain in my backside. But there we go. We'll get this sweated up, we'll get it filled up and tested, and I think this will be one to learn from, because I did not imagine it would be this challenging to fit. It's the truth. Yeah, it really feels quick when you take the flow limiter out there. I don't like these crappy plastic arms though, because if like that comes off, you know, what are you going to do? Anyway, let's have a look under here, that's where we should be looking. Unsurprisingly, it is okay, or surprisingly, depending on how long you've been watching me work. We'll do it full bore. That is quite an impressive fill time, though I say so myself. Where are we on the fill line? Oh, we're slightly above 6 litres. I will not shed the tear. I bet the flush will win it. This will be fantastic. Alright. Feel around for leaks. And press the button. Check at the back of the thing. Check it with an actual dry hand. That's not bad. And we didn't even have to use any bathroom silicone on it. Alright, let's get the usual stuff out of the way. Little chain on there. You can see the clock. If you can't see the clock, I'll show you the clock. 3, 2, 1, go! Oh, 14 seconds. 14 seconds. That loo is back in action within 14 seconds. That is mental. Just imagine how sick you would have to be to take advantage of that. Actually, it does make sense now, because like very often if these are installed in pubs and other things, then that would actually make sense, because if you've got a big queue of people, then nobody would wait for this to fill up, because it's like, you know, in a pub, just people just don't flush the chain. The only other thing I would do is run some sealant along here, just to stop any vibration. I suppose I could have put it on the brackets before I put that down, but I didn't know if I was going to have to move it with the pipe work. I'm going to have to tell the client I'm going to have to finish this overflow off tomorrow. Everyone, I'm back here this morning, just quickly, well, meant to be quickly, taking this horrible thing out, because I really had trouble sleeping last night with this in. I mean, you saw how fast that was filling up, and all it takes is this to come off, this flimsy little thing, which, to be honest, I'm surprised it didn't, and you've got a cistern that can fill in 14 seconds with no way of stopping itself and no overflow. So we changed it over for the fluid master valve. I'll quickly show you that. I should have showed you that before I put it in. But needless to say, I don't know if you can see that, but that is a bit more substantial than the last one. This float is not going to come off. And also, it may fill a bit more slowly now, but you know what, I'm a lot happier for it. And it's also a quick change, but I'm not going to show you that because there wasn't. So yeah, onto this. This is under basically test. We always do, anytime you do any work, you do work on the water first, if you can, if you possibly can. So then that is under test, because nobody's coming back today. The planet save the water, but we can't, so... The world is doomed. Much better. That is how it shall be. Forever. Alright, put the lid back on. Get the sweet Instapick, and we'll be on our way. Whoa. Oh, we've got to go around and cut the overflow off. Leave 2 foot of overflow sticking out the wall. On the whole, not bad. Anyway, I'll see you at college.